Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. I, 26, female, met my fiance Peter, 30, during a charity run. He was one of the organizers. Within the next few weeks, we grew very close to each other. He was a divorcee and had been single since his divorce a year ago. His wife's name was Laura. They had no kids together. I never had any serious relationships in my life till then. Peter was my first. Laura was Peter's high school sweetheart. They divorced mutually at a point when they both realized that seeing other people was better than staying together. Even after the divorce, they had a good relationship. Laura was a significant part of his 20s, so almost everyone in his life knew her. I met her twice while we were dating. Both meetings were great. I was comfortable with their post-divorce relationship. It looked like they had clear boundaries and respect each other's priorities. Almost a year into dating, Peter and I realized our relationship was getting serious. We got engaged soon after and fixed a wedding date, but a few incidents that followed our engagement made me question my love life and the relationship between Peter and Laura. The first was Peter's admission that Laura helped him select the ring for me. It was weird to ask your ex-wife to help choose an engagement ring for your fiancé, but I didn't make a huge fuss about it. The second incident that made me think was a comment made by Laura. Peter and I were talking about the physical features we found attractive in a person. Peter told me that with his history of dating, he had realized that he had a type. Laura was the one who identified his taste. Apparently, after our first date, Peter sent her my photo. She observed that I had the same hair color and texture as her and told him, "She's just a mini me." This comment made me angry. Until the engagement, I didn't know all this, so I shared my concerns with Peter. He accepted his mistake and told me that he would be more careful from then on. The realization that Laura still had great power in Peter's life concerned me. My brain did not blame Peter at all. I assumed that she was manipulating him. My love for him made me blind to the chances of him being wrong. Peter had two elder brothers. I had grown very close to them as well. The same was my dynamics with his friends. Peter had told me that his friends were planning a bachelor party for him. My friends held a view against bachelorette parties, so we planned to spend a day together at some peaceful place before my wedding. James, Peter's best friend, was hosting the bachelor party. A few days before the bachelor party, James told me that he wanted to discuss something serious with me. He called me immediately. Laura wanted to be part of their bachelor party. James had planned it to be an all-men party, but Laura called him to make sure that she was included. She also told him she had a special surprise for Peter that none of his guy friends could give. I had secondhand embarrassment when I heard Laura's statements from James. Where was this woman's self-respect? James was worried about presenting this to Peter and had called me. I was confident that Peter would say no to her request. We already had a conversation about Laura where I raised my concerns. I believed that Peter would respect my concerns and say no to her. So I asked James to raise this with Peter. James asked whether it would be possible for me to meet him in the evening. I was free after work, so I went straight to meet him. When I got there, I saw that apart from James, 4 of Peter's other close friends were also present. With the way they struggled to find a decent start to the conversation, I got an intuition that I would not like what I was about to hear. My instinct was right. When James told Peter about Laura's demands, Peter asked him to involve her in the party. James felt weird about her surprise idea and shared it with Peter. Peter laughed at it and said, "That's my last party as a bachelor. Let Laura help you to make it memorable for me." This was my first reaction. Above love and care, I had a good amount of respect for Peter's personality. That respect went down the drain as soon as I heard how he responded to James. My wedding was just a week away. I had to make a decision. I learned one more thing from James and the group present there. They have hated Laura since high school. She was a bully then and grew up just as shitty afterward. I thought they all held her in great regard. James told me about when she even banned them from meeting Peter. My first plan was to immediately break off the engagement with Peter, thereby stopping the wedding. But the thought that Peter would have done this behind my back after marriage made me angry. I had to take revenge, so I decided to go forward with the marriage. I requested James to keep the conversation we had a secret. He agreed to go forward with the bachelor party preparations. I had to collect evidence first. For this, I made James text Laura and Peter again about her involvement. I ensured that the part about the surprise was included in their conversation. This was enough digital evidence for me. I used the week to create a proper narrative of the events in my favor. James had already booked an Airbnb to host the party. My next part was to be in that place during the party. Either I had to hide in the room or I had to wait somewhere close and come on time when James signals me. For this, I wanted to know what Laura's surprise was, but she did not reveal it even though James begged her so that he could add it to his plans. She just asked him for the key to a room in the Airbnb so that she could have a few private minutes with Peter there. On the day before the party, I visited the Airbnb with James. James showed me the room he had planned to give to Laura. Our initial plan was to make me hide in the empty wardrobe just before the party, and when Laura came in with Peter, I could jump at them. But that sounded too cinematic and almost impossible, so I asked him to get a good photographer. James had to call me the moment they went to the room. I would come and knock on the room until they opened it. The photographer had to take photos of me catching my fiancé red-handed. I would then mass mail it to people invited to our wedding, including Laura's husband. I was anxiously waiting outside the Airbnb in my car. I had a photographer friend with me ready to cover this for free. I was pretty impressed by James's skills. He informed a good amount of people at the party about what would happen. So at that point, getting visual evidence was a surety, as at least one person would have their camera out. James called me as soon as they entered the room. I waited for a few more minutes and then walked in. Few people had already passed out by then. Around 10 people were in the main room drinking. I went straight to the room and got into a fist fight with the door. I knocked non-stop. After a minute, Peter came to the door and opened it. He kept the door half open and peeped his head outside, thinking it was Peter. I slapped his face and pushed the door open. Laura was on the bed. Her hair was messy, and it looked like she had just gotten dressed. The photographer immediately took a few photos of the three of us, but I was not ready to leave it at that. I asked her what her surprise was. By this time, there was a small crowd outside the room. There was a look of disgust on the face of most people. I asked Laura what her surprise was. She hesitated initially, but when I threatened her with the photos, she started talking. I wanted the whole room to listen to her. Peter did not even flick a finger to protect her from me. While Laura was dating Peter, she went away for a few years to complete college. During one of their conversations, Laura told him she tried lap dancing a few times while in college. Ever since then, he had begged her to do it for him. He denied it even while they were married. She wanted to surprise him with a lap dance at his bachelor party. I felt disgusted after hearing this. I took off my ring and placed it on her hand and walked away. I went straight to my parents' home. I didn't shed a single drop of tears. As soon as I got there, I told them what had happened. They consoled me at first, but then said to me that I should have stopped Peter the moment I heard about it. Peter's eldest brother called me. His parents are yet to know about this. He also believes that I took things a bit over the top with the photographer. He's in no way justifying his brother, but he feels like if I hadn't dragged it till the day of the bachelor party, I could have ended the wedding early. Now, most of the wedding is planned and paid for, so there's no option for a refund. Invitees might have already booked tickets. Am I the a-hole for letting my fiancé cheat with his ex-wife so I could collect more evidence against him? A day has passed. Peter called me today and apologized. The condition at his house is pathetic. Both his brothers know about this now. They have stopped talking to him, but he has asked not to share it with his parents. He agreed that my decision to break off the engagement was right. Then he asked me to erase all the digital evidence. I agreed to his request and cut the call. Laura also sent a long apology text, but she had one request. Her husband was yet to find out about this, so she wanted me to delete it. I said okay to both of them. When they texted again, asking whether I had deleted everything, I lied and said yes. The wedding remained cancelled. Peter informed his parents about it as well. But on the wedding night, Peter updated his Facebook profile photo. It was a photo of him sitting with Laura on a boat. She commented on the photo, "That's the smile of someone who just escaped hell." She was calling me hell. Peter still talks to James. James informed me that Peter was trying to push a narrative in which I was jealous of Laura's friendship and he ended the marriage. I know what has to be done. This was the moment that I had been waiting for. I took the mail that I had drafted earlier. It was an email I had decided to send to all the invitees to our marriage. I attached photos from the eventful night and screenshots of their chat with James. Then I mailed it to all the invitees to let them know about the actual events that caused an end to our marriage. I know now that the mail has reached wherever it was supposed to, as my phone has not stopped ringing since. ESH. If someone learns about their significant other's plan to cheat, the natural course any person would take is confronting them. But you were more focused on your revenge. You could have ended everything early. NTA. If it were me, I would have bought billboards and printed their photos. Cheaters should pay for what they do. This was a befitting reply. I, 39, female, come from a very wealthy family. I never had to struggle for anything because my mom or dad would always give it to me. I can say that I grew up spoiled, but I grew out of that phase once I had my twins. Since I was so spoiled and never got in trouble for anything as a teenager, I was always going to parties with my friends, doing drugs and drinking alcohol. Then at 16, I found I was pregnant and gave birth at 17 to my two beautiful twins, girl and boy. Thankfully, my parents were supportive and helped me through the process. My parents had set up a trust fund for me when I was a kid, and I wasn't able to access until I was 18. So when I turned 18, I moved out and got a condo. I only used my trust fund whenever it was for my kids, rent, or essentials around the house. I also took some out and put it in an emergency fund. I got a job at my dad's company, so I was able to live comfortably but not keep up with the lifestyle I grew up with. When I was 31, I met my now husband and his daughter, who was 4 years younger than my kids. Me and my husband dated for about 4 years. Then we got married for 2 months before my twins' birthday. On my twins' 18th birthday, my parents gifted them each a trust fund of their own. It summed up to $200,000 each. Now, my twins are both 22 years old and both are thriving. I like to give myself a pat on the back for how I raised them and not how my parents raised me. Now to the issue at hand. My stepdaughter is now 18 years old, and for the past couple of months she's been saying how she couldn't wait to get her trust fund like my twins, and I didn't know if she would or not because I never knew about the twins. Now, when her birthday came around, she did get money, just not the trust fund from my parents. Instead, they gave her a car. But to say she was disappointed is an understatement. She said we didn't love her because she wasn't blood, and that we've always treated her differently because she wasn't my daughter, which wasn't true. I loved her from the day I met her, and I've always treated her like she was one of mine. She then asked me why didn't I tell her she wasn't getting a trust fund since that was all she was talking about. And I told her I didn't know if she was getting one or not. She then told me that I should have made one for her myself. I tried to tell her that it wasn't possible, but she didn't want to listen to me and just said she hated me. So, am I the a-hole? I would just like to add beforehand, my husband has told her multiple times to not be expecting the trust fund because she might not get it. And I also told her that I didn't know if she would get one or not. But she has chosen to ignore us. So I had a talk with my parents and stepdaughter. I did ask my parents how they didn't give her a trust fund like my twins. They said that since they don't know SD that well, that they felt like a trust fund was too personal because they didn't have that grandparent-grandchild relationship, which is understandable. My parents rarely got to see SD because she just moved in with me and my husband when we got married, and my mom and dad like to travel a lot, so they really only got to see her on holidays and birthdays. That's why they got her a car because it's not that big of a present because her last car was wrecked up pretty bad. I also apologized to her for not just telling her that she wasn't getting a trust fund and letting her get her hopes up, but I did explain to her that she shouldn't just expect something just because someone else got it, especially something as personal as a trust fund. She apologized for how she reacted and thanked my parents for the car, but I think she's still disappointed. So I plan to take her out of the country for a birthday trip with my husband and the twins. Also, for anyone wondering, the car she got was a 2023 BMW 5 Series. NTA, no one is entitled to anyone's money, biologically related or not. If someone is kind enough to gift you something, the answer should always be, thank you. Never, I expected more. This is basic human. She needs a harsh reality check. Honestly, the fact that she's so entitled, making this level of a tantrum and reacting with, I hate you comments, makes me think that not getting a trust fund is in her benefit. With that maturity level, how is she going to handle coming into that amount of money? She needs to learn to be grateful and appreciative. Something you had to learn by getting pregnant so young, and sounds like you instilled in your bio kids after going through that. I can try to sympathize with the insecurity of her feeling like the distinction might come from not being biologically related, but the way she handled it is concerning and disappointing. Sounds like your parents love her and are building a relationship with her, but have only known her for 4 years. This is a reality. There's nothing wrong with that. It's understanding that they haven't been saving for decades for her. Instead of focusing on how she could be strengthening family bonds, she's being hurtful. If she's worried about money for school or whatnot, I'm sure she could come up to you and your husband, even if your parents set up specific loans, requests, etc. The key words missing in her are kindness, maturity, and gratefulness. I'm 33, female, husband 46, male, and I have been married for almost a year, and he has 2 sons from his previous marriage, 13 male and 11 male. The other day, he took my son, 12 male, with them to the birthday of a friend of his kids. They were just going to be outside for a few hours and play American football. My son has no interest in playing football, but he says he likes being in places where there are a lot of tall boys because he thinks being short is funny. So when my husband told him a lot of the boys in the party were going to be tall, he wanted to go, but he didn't play football with them, just watched from outside. After the game, he was eating burgers with the other boys, and this is when the issue started. My husband and the other adults were on another table, so they didn't really hear what happened at first. The kids were talking about girls, and the birthday boy explained that the reason women usually don't play physical sports like football is because if they get hurt and bleed, they can't get pregnant anymore, and that this was a medical condition called menstruation. My son corrected him and explained what menstruation was and how periods work. The issue is that the boy then went crying to his father, saying my son made him feel uncomfortable and ruined his birthday. None of the other kids felt offended. It was just him. My husband thinks that even though there is absolutely nothing wrong with my son having knowledge about feminine issues, I should tell him to be more discreet with that information when talking to another boy his age. I don't think he did anything wrong. I would even say he did a good service to those kids, teaching them. I usually never fight with my husband, so the fact that we are now having an interpersonal conflict about this makes me doubt if maybe I am a little in the wrong. Am I the a-hole? NTA, as long as the information your child is delivering is accurate, I don't see any harm. It's much better than leaving them misinformed. It's not like he spontaneously said, let me tell you about how periods work. He heard misinformation and corrected it.